Ethan Cross squinted against the harsh light, his head pounding as consciousness slowly returned. The acrid scent of burning electronics filled his nostrils. Blinking rapidly, he tried to focus on his surroundings. Gone was the sterile interior of his spacecraft. In its place was a dense jungle of alien flora, an explosion of colors unlike anything he had ever seen. "Where the hell am I?" he muttered, pushing himself up on unsteady arms. The last thing he remembered was the proximity, alarm blaring as his ship spiraled toward an uncharted planet. Now, he was sprawled in a small clearing, bits of wreckage scattered around him. A rustling sound from the foliage nearby made Ethan tense. His hand instinctively went to the utility knife strapped to his belt. "Hello?" he called cautiously. "Is someone there?" The rustling grew louder, and suddenly, Ethan found himself face to face with the most breathtaking woman he had ever seen. Her skin was a deep, iridescent sapphire, shimmering in the dim light. Her silver eyes gleamed like molten metal, and she stood nearly as tall as him, her athletic build putting Earth's finest athletes to shame. Ethan's jaw dropped. Hello?" he stammered. The blue-skinned woman's gaze widened in wonder as she reached out, her slender fingers hovering inches from his face. "Zirin," she whispered, her voice lilting and melodic. Before Ethan could respond, more movement caught his eye. To his astonishment, several other women emerged from the jungle. Each was as stunning as the first, their skin tones ranging from soft lavender to rich emerald green. They studied him with expressions of curiosity. And was that attraction? Ethan cleared his throat, forcing a nervous chuckle. "Ladies, I come in peace." The first woman stepped closer, her silver eyes locked onto his. "I am Lyra," she said, her accent unfamiliar but her words perfectly clear. "You are not from here." Ethan nodded, still struggling to process the situation. "Ethan Cross. I'm from Earth. My ship, there was an accident." Lyra's eyes lit up with excitement. "Earth! We have heard legends of your world." She turned to the others, speaking rapidly in a language Ethan didn't recognize. The group erupted in excited murmurs, several of them stepping forward to get a closer look at him. A statuesque woman with violet skin and piercing gold eyes gracefully approached. "I am Celine," she introduced herself, her gaze sweeping over Ethan's form with interest. "We have never seen a male like you before. You are intriguing." Ethan felt his cheeks flush under their intense stares. Thanks, I think." He shook his head, trying to regain his focus. "Look, I need to figure out where I am. Can someone tell me what this place is?" Lyra nodded. "You have crash-landed on Vena, a former pleasure colony for advanced alien races. We are the last of its inhabitants." She gestured to the gathered women. "There are 30 of us in total." Ethan's eyebrows shot up. 30 women? And no men?" Celine laughed, a sound like chimes in the wind. "No men, not until you arrived, Earthman." The implication hit Ethan like a freight train. He was the only man on an entire planet full of stunning alien women, who all seemed fascinated by him. It was like something out of a teenage fantasy, or a very specific kind of adult film. "Right," he said, clearing his throat. "Well, I should probably check on my ship and figure out how to get home." Lyra's face fell slightly. "But you have only just arrived. Surely you can stay for a while. We have so many questions about Earth, about you." Ethan hesitated. The logical thing would be to start working on his ship immediately. But the hopeful looks on their faces tugged at something inside him. Besides, he had to admit, he was curious about this world and its inhabitants. "I suppose I could stay for a bit," he conceded. "But first, is there somewhere I can clean up? The crash left me a little worse for wear." Celine clapped her hands excitedly. Of course. We will take you to the bathing pools. They have remarkable healing properties. As the group led him deeper into the jungle, Ethan had the distinct feeling that his life had just taken a very unexpected turn. And he had no idea if he was prepared for what this alien world had in store for him. The bathing pools turned out to be a series of shimmering, opalescent hot springs nestled within a secluded grotto. Steam rose from the surface, carrying a heady, floral scent that made Ethan's head swim. "These waters will rejuvenate you," Lyra explained, gesturing to the largest pool. "Please make yourself comfortable." Ethan hesitated, suddenly aware of his audience. Dozens of alien women watched him, expectantly, their luminous eyes reflecting the pool's glow. Do you ladies mind giving me a little privacy?" he asked, rubbing the back of his neck. The women exchanged confused glances. Celine tilted her head, her violet curls cascading over one shoulder. "Privacy? Is that an Earth custom?" "Sort of," Ethan replied, feeling heat rise to his face. "Where I'm from, we usually bathe alone." Lyra's silver eyes widened in understanding. "Ah, fascinating. We shall respect your Earth customs, Ethan Cross." She turned to the others and spoke in their melodic language. The group reluctantly retreated, though more than a few curious glances lingered in his direction before they disappeared into the foliage. Once alone, Ethan stripped down and eased himself into the warm, iridescent water. The effect was immediate. His aching muscles relaxed, and the fog of confusion in his mind began to clear. He let out a slow breath, trying to process everything. He was stranded on an alien world, surrounded by breathtaking women who seemed utterly captivated by him. It felt like something out of a ridiculous sci-fi novel, but this was real. After what felt like hours, Ethan reluctantly pulled himself from the pool. To his surprise, a set of soft, shimmering garments awaited him, loose-fitting pants and a tunic that subtly shifted colors as he moved. Dressed in his new alien attire, he made his way back to the clearing where he had first encountered the women. A small group awaited him, including Lyra and Celine. Lyra's eyes lit up as she saw him. "Ethan, you look much refreshed. How do you feel?" "Better, thanks," he replied, running a hand through his damp hair. "Though I have about 1,000,000 questions." Celine gracefully rose to her feet. "And we have just as many for you, Earthman. But first, we must properly welcome you to Vena." She held out her hand. "Would you join me in the traditional dance of greeting?" Ethan hesitated. "I should warn you, I'm not much of a dancer." Celine's laugh was like music. "Fear not. I will guide you." She took his hand, and at her touch, a jolt of energy shot up his arm. Celine began to move, her body flowing like water, each movement effortlessly graceful. Ethan did his best to follow, but he felt clumsy and stiff in comparison. As they danced, more of the alien women gathered, watching with amused fascination. He heard their whispers and soft giggles, which only made him more self-conscious. He stumbled, nearly losing his balance. Celine caught him, her touch lingering a moment longer than necessary. "You're doing wonderfully," she encouraged. "Now for the final move." She spun, expecting Ethan to catch her. Instead, he tripped over his own feet, sending them both tumbling to the ground in a tangle of limbs. Laughter erupted from the gathered crowd, but it wasn't mocking. Ethan found himself chuckling along with them as Celine helped him to his feet. "Perhaps we should stick to Earth dances in the future," he joked with a grin. Lyra stepped forward, amusement sparkling in her silver eyes. "I believe it is time we showed you our village, Ethan. There is much to discuss." As they walked, Ethan couldn't help but notice the way the other women looked at him, with curiosity, admiration, and something else that made his pulse quicken. He cleared his throat. "So you mentioned this was a former pleasure colony. What exactly does that mean?" Lyra's expression grew thoughtful. "Long ago, advanced races came here for recreation and companionship. She glanced at him, a faint blush darkening her blue cheeks. "We are the descendants of those left behind when the colony was abandoned." Ethan's mind raced with the implications. "And you've been here alone all this time?" Celine nodded. "We have built our own society, our own way of life. But we have always wondered about the worlds beyond our own." They reached the outskirts of what appeared to be a small settlement. The buildings were unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Organic, structures that seemed to grow from the earth itself, shimmering with the same iridescent quality as the bathing pools. A crowd had gathered, all women, all stunning in their alien beauty. They whispered and pointed as Ethan passed, some bold, enough to reach out and touch his arm or hair. "Ladies, please," Lyra said, amusement in her voice. "Give our guests some space." One of the women, her skin a pale mint green, stepped forward. "Lyra, is it true? Is he really from Earth?" Ethan nodded. "Ethan Cross, at your service." He extended his hand, remembering too late that they might not be familiar with the gesture. But to his surprise, the green-skinned woman grasped his hand in both of hers, her eyes wide with wonder. "I am Thalia," she murmured. "Your skin, it is so warm." Ethan gently extracted his hand, feeling overwhelmed by all the attention. Nice to meet you all. I have to say, this is not how I expected my day to go when I woke up this morning." Thalia tilted her head. "How did you expect it to go?" Ethan laughed. "Well, I certainly didn't plan on crash landing on an alien planet full of beautiful women who seem fascinated by me. It's like winning the lottery and getting struck by lightning at the same time." The women exchanged confused glances. "Lottery? Lightning?" Celine asked. "Earth expressions," Ethan explained. "I just meant, this is all very unexpected." Lyra placed a gentle hand on his arm. "I am sure you must feel overwhelmed. Come, let us show you where you can rest. We can continue our cultural exchange in the morning." As they led him to a small but comfortable dwelling, Ethan's mind whirled with the events of the day. He had gone from a routine space mission to being the only male on an alien planet, surrounded by gorgeous women who were utterly captivated by him. Part of him knew he should focus on repairing his ship and finding a way home. But as he settled onto the soft, pulsating bed, some kind of living organism, another part of him couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this world had in store. One thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Ethan awoke to the soft glow of bioluminescent plants illuminating the walls. For a brief moment, he forgot where he was. The rhythmic pulsing of the strange bed beneath him, unlike anything he had ever slept on before. Then the memories of the previous day rushed back. A movement beside him made him freeze. Turning his head, he found Lyra reclining beside him, her shimmering blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Her silver eyes met his, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "Good morning, Earthman." Ethan's pulse quickened as she stretched, gracefully. She sat up, the fluidity of her movement mesmerizing. "Come," she urged, offering him her hand. "The others are eager to continue our cultural exchange, and Thalia has prepared a traditional morning meal for you." Ethan hesitated for a split second before swinging his legs over the side of the bed and standing. "All right, let's see what an alien breakfast looks like." They exited the dwelling, and Ethan was once again struck by the beauty of Vena. The village buzzed with activity, colorful inhabitants moving gracefully through their morning routines. Several women paused to wave or greet him, their gazes lingering a bit too long. They approached an open-air structure where Thalia stood beside a table laden with exotic fruits and some kind of iridescent nectar. She beamed at him. "Ah, our Earth guest awakens. I hope you slept well?" Ethan nodded, remembering a phrase Lyra had taught him the night before. Zarak Matala?" he attempted. Thalia's emerald skin darkened slightly, her eyes widening. Around them, the gathered women erupted into a chorus of giggles. Lyra bit her lip, suppressing a laugh. "Ethan," she said gently, "I believe you meant to say good morning. What you actually said was, well, a rather passionate declaration of love involving tentacles." Ethan's face went scarlet. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean Thalia." Merely grinned, clearly amused. "No need for apologies, Earthman. Your enthusiasm is charming." She gestured to the table. "Please eat. You'll need your strength for today's activities." As Ethan sampled the alien cuisine, shockingly delicious, Celine approached, her golden eyes filled with excitement. "Ethan," she purred, "I hoped you might join me later. I'd love to show you our artistic traditions." Before he could respond, another woman, this one with burnished copper skin, interjected. "But surely he'd rather learn about our advanced technology. I could give him a tour of the archives." Ethan suddenly found himself in the middle of a growing debate, each woman eager to claim his attention. He glanced at Lyra, silently pleading for help. She clapped her hands, drawing everyone's focus. "Ladies, please. Our guest has only just arrived. There will be time for everything." The group reluctantly agreed, though Ethan didn't miss the competitive glances exchanged between some of the women. After breakfast, Ethan set out to explore the village, accompanied by Lyra and Thalia. As they walked, he couldn't help but ask, "So, you mentioned this was a pleasure colony, but it seems like you've built an entire civilization here. How does that work without, well, men?" Thalia smiled mysteriously. "We have adapted. Our bodies are capable of self-fertilization when necessary, but it has been generations since we've encountered a male of any species." Ethan nearly tripped over his own feet. "Wait, so you don't need males?" Lyra finished for him, amusement dancing in her silver eyes. "No, but that does not mean we are not curious about you." Ethan cleared his throat, struggling to process that information. "Right. That's interesting." As they continued their tour, his engineer's mind kicked into gear. He noticed several areas where the village's infrastructure could be improved. They passed a communal bathing area where women filled large bowls with water from a natural spring. Ethan frowned. "You know, I bet I could rig up a more efficient water system, maybe even a what?" Thalia asked, intrigued. "A shower," Ethan explained. "A quicker way to bathe." Lyra's eyes lit up. "That would be wonderful." A few hours later, Ethan stood back, admiring his handiwork. A simple but functional shower system, built using crystalline pipes, plant fibers, and a few salvaged parts from his wrecked ship. He turned to the gathered women. "All right, who wants to try Earth-style bathing?" A moment of hesitation. Then Celine stepped forward, her violet curls bouncing. "I volunteer," she said, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Ethan swallowed hard. "All right, just stand here and—" He pulled the lever, expecting a gentle cascade of water. Instead, a torrent of multicolored foamy liquid exploded from the pipes, drenching Celine and half the assembled crowd. Sputtering, Ethan scrambled to shut it off, but the mechanism had jammed. Within moments, the village square was awash in rainbow-hued bubbles. To his relief, no one seemed upset. In fact, the women were laughing, splashing each other, and sliding through the foam. Thalia grabbed his hand, pulling him into the chaos. "Come, Earthman," she giggled. "Join the fun you have created." Before he knew it, Ethan was caught in the middle of an impromptu foam party. The alien women swirled around him, their skin glistening, their laughter infectious. Celine sidled up to him, her wet clothes clinging to her body. "I must say, Ethan," she teased, "your earth-bathing customs are quite invigorating." Ethan ran a hand through his soap-slicked hair. "This isn't exactly how showers are supposed to work, but hey, glad you're enjoying it." As the sun set and the foam finally dissipated, Ethan found himself alone with Lyra. They sat atop a small hill overlooking the village as the twin moons rose. Lyra gazed at the stars. "Tell me about Earth's constellations," she murmured. "Are they very different from ours?" Ethan began to describe the patterns in Earth's night sky, tracing imaginary shapes in the dirt. Lyra listened intently, asking questions that revealed a deep knowledge of astrophysics. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, shifting from science to philosophy to personal stories. Ethan found himself opening up in a way he rarely did, sharing his life on Earth, his hopes, his regrets. Lyra leaned closer, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "You are remarkable, Ethan Cross," she whispered. "I feel as if I have known you for lifetimes." The air between them grew charged. Ethan's heart pounded as Lyra's face inched closer to his. "Ethan! Lyra!" a voice interrupted from below. It was Thalia, breathless with excitement. "Come quickly," she called. "The night bloom lily is about to open. It only happens once a year." Lyra pulled back, her expression torn between disappointment and amusement. "We should go. It truly is a beautiful sight." Ethan exhaled, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. One thing was certain, his adventure on Vena was far from over. 2 years had passed since Ethan Cross had crash-landed on Vena. What had once been an alien world was now home. Standing on the balcony of his dwelling, he watched the triple moons rise, their glow casting an ethereal light over the village below. Behind him, a soft cry broke the silence. Ethan turned to see Lyra cradling their son, Orion. The infant's skin shimmered with a subtle blue iridescence, a perfect blend of his parents' features. At just 6 months old, Orion already displayed uncanny intelligence, his silver eyes tracking movements with precision beyond his years. "He's restless tonight," Lyra murmured, rocking the baby gently. "Perhaps he senses the excitement in the air." Ethan nodded, wrapping an arm around her waist. "It's a big day tomorrow, the Festival of Renewal, my first as a father." From below, a melodic laugh rang out. Celine twirled into view, their daughter Aurora perched on her hip. At 18 months old, Aurora was a bundle of boundless energy. As she waved up at him, her skin shifted through a kaleidoscope of colors. "Papa!" Aurora squealed. "Come dance!" Ethan chuckled. "Duty calls." He kissed Lyra's forehead before descending the steps. As he approached, Selene set Aurora down, and the toddler immediately began to sway, her movements unnervingly graceful for her age. Ethan attempted to mimic her, which resulted in an awkward shuffle that sent both Aurora and Selene into fits of laughter. "Oh, my love," Selene teased, her golden eyes sparkling. 2 years, and you still dance like a newborn grake. Perhaps Aurora should teach you." Ethan laughed, scooping his daughter into his arms. "I've improved. I only stepped on 3 toes last week." Nearby, a rustling in the foliage signaled Thalia's arrival. She emerged, carrying their youngest child, Tara, in a sling across her chest. At just 3 months old, Tara already displayed a remarkable connection to the planet's plant life. Flowers bloomed at her touch, and the great sentient trees of Vena swayed gently whenever she was near. "I thought I'd find you all here," Thalia said, her emerald eyes warm. "Tara was fussing. I think she wanted to be part of the family gathering." Ethan looked at the 3 women who had become his partners, the children they had created together. It hadn't been an easy path learning to navigate this unconventional family structure, but he wouldn't trade it for anything. "Well," he said, clearing his throat, "since we're all here, why don't we have a family night? I've been wanting to introduce you to an Earth tradition called a slumber party." The next morning was a whirlwind of activity. Ethan tried, unsuccessfully, to wrangle the children while preparing for the festival. "Orion, no, don't put that in your mouth," he called, lunging to snatch a glowing crystal from his son's grasp. In his distraction, he nearly tripped over Aurora, who was gleefully painting intricate patterns on the floor with what he hoped was washable dye. Thalia entered, smiling at the chaos. "Having trouble, Earthman?" Ethan ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I thought I'd try to organize a cleanup before the festival, teach the kids about responsibility and teamwork." Thalia laughed. "Oh, Ethan, always trying to merge Earth customs with our ways." She set Tara down gently, then made a series of musical clicks and whistles. To Ethan's amazement, the plants around the room responded. Vines stretched out, collecting, scattered objects while flower-like appendages released a fragrant mist that dissolved dirt on contact. Aurora clapped excitedly, dancing in a circle as the plants moved around her. "Magic, Papa," she squealed. Ethan blinked. "That's incredibly efficient. But I was hoping to teach them about—" A particularly enthusiastic vine reached out and attempted to straighten his hair, leaving him covered in sweet-smelling pollen. The room erupted in laughter. Ethan sighed. Lesson learned. Vena, 1. Earth customs, 0. The festival was in full swing when they arrived. Banners fluttered between crystalline spires, the air filled with the scent of alien delicacies and the sound of hypnotic music. Ethan watched with pride as Aurora joined a group of children in a traditional dance. She moved with the same effortless grace as her mother, a perfect blend of both worlds. Lyra appeared at his side, Orion balanced on her hip. "It's amazing, isn't it?" she said. "How seamlessly they adapt to both cultures." Ethan nodded. "They're the best of both worlds. I just hope I'm doing right by them." Lyra squeezed his hand. "You are. We all are. Together." The day was filled with laughter and celebration, but as the sun set, Selene rushed toward them, her expression filled with urgency. "Ethan, you need to come. Now." She led them to the outskirts of the village, where a small crowd had gathered around a newly unearthed structure. It was an arch-like gateway, covered in intricate symbols, glowing faintly with an otherworldly energy. Thalia stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "It's a portal." Ethan's breath caught. A way back to Earth. For years he had accepted that he would never return home, that Vena was his future. But now, Lyra touched his arm gently. "Ethan, are you all right?" He stared at the portal, his mind a storm of emotions. Finally, he exhaled. "I'm not sure." The news spread quickly. That night, as the village gathered under the glowing moons, Ethan found himself at the center of their attention. He looked at the expectant faces, his partners, his children, his people. Taking a deep breath, he turned back to the portal, reaching out until his fingers hovered just above the activation panel. A long pause. A breath held by the entire community. Then, he deactivated the device. Collective gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by cheers. Ethan turned back, meeting Lyra, Selene, and Thalia's gazes. They rushed forward, wrapping him in an embrace, their children giggling between them. As the celebration resumed, Ethan found himself on the same hill where he and Lyra had once stargazed. His family sprawled around him, watching the moon rise. "You?" "No," he mused, a mischievous glint in his eye. "We should start planning for the future. Not just ours, but all of Vena." Lyra tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Ethan grinned. "We've blended Earth and Venan technology and culture. Why not use it to help the planet thrive? Education, expansion, innovation." Selene clapped her hands. "Oh, and art. Imagine the performances we could create." Thalia nodded. "Sustainable healing methods, agriculture. The possibilities are endless." Aurora tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Papa, can we help?" Ethan's heart swelled. Of course, sweetheart. You and your siblings are the future of Vena. As the triple moons reached their peak, Ethan looked at his family, at the world he had come to love. He was home, and their story was only just beginning.